All right. Hello, hello, hello. Good afternoon, good morning, or good evening, wherever you're dialing in from today. Welcome to today's Move America webinar on CMMC Level 1 assessment scoping. We are so glad that you could join us today. Now, whether you're dialing in from the East Coast with your after lunch coffee, the West Coast with your almost lunch coffee, or anywhere in between, just as long as there's coffee involved, because we want you to stay awake for this one. You know, they say it's all about being bright and early, right? The early bird gets the worm, but in cybersecurity, the early bird gets the compliance before the deadline. And that worm, it's a contract you get to keep. There you go. You get that one for free today. My name is Rick. I'm part of the strategic comms team here at Move America. Our mission is strengthening the defense industrial base, and today's topic is absolutely central to that mission. If you're a contractor handling federal contract information, or what we call FCI, because we don't have enough acronyms today, this presentation definitely for you. We're going to walk through everything you need to show you what to do when it comes to scoping your CMMC Level 1 assessment. Think of this as your compliance GPS. We'll help you navigate from where do I even start to I've got this. So buckle up and get ready. So a little about me, as much as I'm not a fan of talking about me, but I might as well, since I'm the one talking at you today, and you'd kind of want to know why. So I work again with Move America's strategic communications team. I lead that wonderful team. I've spent more than 30 years in communications, from radio and television to strategic marketing for defense and nonprofit clients. Now, Move America is a nonprofit focused on the defense industrial base and its development. In plain English, we help businesses like yours succeed in the defense marketplace. That includes navigating the alphabet soup of compliance requirements with CMMC, DFARS, NIST, FAR. It's enough acronyms to make your head spin, folks, and it makes mine spin every day. Speaking of acronyms, I did ask my computer for a joke about CMMC, and it said error 404, compliance not found. Don't let that be your business. That one, again, that's also for you for free. The bottom line, we are here to help small and medium businesses, academia, industry, government, doesn't matter. Everybody needs to strengthen their cybersecurity posture, and that is especially true for small businesses and medium businesses that want to compete for defense contracts. So today's webinar is part of that mission, giving you that practical, actionable guidance that you can use immediately. So a few quick housekeeping items before we get started. All right, your microphone is muted and your camera is disabled. That's just for this webinar, not for anything. Please don't try to test that on your next Teams or Zoom call, because you will be seen on that call. So why no microphone or camera? Now, look, we appreciate your enthusiasm, but we don't need to hear your dog barking at the mailman or your kids asking what's for lunch. My dog actually tried to attend one of these webinars once. He was kicked out for too many paws in the presentation. I'm sorry, folks, I heard all those eye rolls from here. Second, make sure you check how your name is displayed. This helps us know who's in the room, and it helps it make it a little more personal. Now, look, if you want everyone to call you Jenny's iPad or Guest Computer 221, that's perfectly fine with us. Just understand that that's going to be your name from now on. Third, and this is most important, please send your questions to us by email today. We have disabled Q&A. We couldn't have any of our experts on with us live. It's the holidays. You know how that goes. So we didn't have anything in the chat or the Q&A panel this time around. I want you to send your questions to email at communications@moveamerica.org. We're going to get those over to our experts, have them answer them for you. Remember, there are no bad questions when it comes to cybersecurity compliance, except maybe, do I really need to do this? And the answer to that one is yes. Lastly, we are coming to you from the state of Maryland, home of Blue Crabs, the Baltimore Ravens, and Orioles, and two-party consent. The last one on the list is what's really important, because by attending this webinar, even with no microphone or camera enabled, you are granting permission to be included in a recorded session. That means if you don't give that permission, you've got to go. Now. I'm going to give you a few seconds. So if you do not give us permission to use you as part of a recorded webinar, even though you're not speaking and not being seen and all that kind of fun stuff, go ahead and head out. While we miss you, we will make sure you get a recording of the webinar later, and we pinky promise on that. All right, I've given it a few seconds. Everybody's still here. Let's see who else drops off or joins. All right. So, our agenda, our roadmap for today, we've got a lot of ground to cover, but don't worry, we'll take it step by step. It's kind of like eating an elephant. You got to do it one bite at a time. Although, hopefully, this will be more pleasant than eating an elephant, especially those tusks. They always get stuck in my teeth. We'll start with a brief overview of the threat landscape, why small and medium businesses are increasingly targeted by cyber criminals. Spoiler alert, it's not random. From there, we're going to dive into CMMC, the Cybersecurity Maturity Model Certification. That includes an overview of federal regulations and the difference between FCI and CUI data. And the heart of today's presentation is that CMMC Level 1 assessment scoping. We'll cover how to define your assessment scope, understand which assets are in scope versus out of scope, and we're going to walk through some additional scoping guidance. Finally, we're going to go through the assessment process itself, including how to perform your self-assessment and how to submit your score to SPURS. I promise to make this as painless as possible. Think of it like getting your annual flu shot. It's a little uncomfortable now, but it'll protect you from much worse problems later. And unlike the flu shot, you can do this one from the comfort of your office chair. Now, before we get into the threats, let me frame why this matters. See, Move America exists to strengthen the defense industrial base, the network of companies that supply everything from fighter jets to the bolts that hold them together, or in some cases, the duct tape. But we're not going to talk about that one. Here's the thing. National security isn't just about aircraft carriers and special forces, okay? I mean, those things are really important, don't get me wrong. But it's about the entire supply chain that supports our war fighter. That supply chain includes the small and medium businesses that manufacture parts, develop software, provide services, and keep our defense infrastructure running. You might think I just make brackets or I just provide IT support, but to a nation state adversary, your just is their opportunity because every link in the chain matters. You got to understand, CMMC exists because our adversaries know this. They figured out that attacking small suppliers is often easier than attacking the Pentagon directly. It's the cyber equivalent of going through the side door when the front door is locked and guarded with guys with machine guns. When you protect your systems, you're not just protecting your business, you're protecting national security. And trust me, that's not hyperbole, that is reality. So you need to understand that. Now, let's talk about the elephant in the room. And no, I'm not talking about the one that we're trying to eat one bite at a time. The defense industrial base, we call it the DIB, is under attack constantly, right now, and for the foreseeable future, like forever. Small and medium businesses are on the front line of those attacks. Here are some numbers that should get your attention. 43% of all cyber attacks target small and medium businesses. That's not a typo. That's nearly half of all attacks. Why? Because attackers know that smaller businesses often have fewer resources dedicated to cybersecurity. 74% of breaches are caused by human error. That's what we call the problem exists between the chair and the keyboard. And you pretty much are probably part of that problem, especially if you clicked on any of those links that said, hey, click here to claim your $1 million lottery prize. That means training and awareness are just as important as firewalls and antivirus software. It's not always sophisticated hacking. Sometimes it's just someone clicking the wrong link. Sound familiar? 74% human error, which means if you blame the computer, you're probably wrong 3 out of 4 times. And that means the IT department, sorry to say, was right, and they always rub that in your face. Only 14% of small and medium businesses have plans in place to mitigate attacks. That's a sad number. And I don't mean 14% of the 43%. That's 14% of all of them. That means a lot of others aren't protected. Only 17% have proper insurance coverage because that cute little gecko that wants to save you 15% on car insurance isn't doing a thing for you for cyber. The cost of a cyber attack, guess what? Cyber attacks on SMBs could be as low as $826. Hey, you get a Dollar General cyber attacker. That's an average. $653,000 is another average, and that's on the higher side. That's enough to put many small businesses right out of operation permanently, or a skillful threat actor into a new Bentley. Look, we don't want either of those things to happen, okay? But why are SMBs targeted? Look, you've got intellectual property, you've got dual use technologies, you've got access to sensitive government information, you've got those supply chain connections to larger contractors, and sometimes simple political or ideological motivation. It's all there for the taking. So you've got to understand why you're under attack, and you are under attack right now, whether you like to know it or not. So small and medium businesses, again, we said they're increasingly targeted, and it's for three main reasons. First, you've got those supply chain access points. You see, these cyber attackers, they see SMBs as stepping stones to larger targets. It's kind of like the movie Ocean's 11. If you can't break into the vault directly, you find another way in. So by compromising one vendor or supplier, attackers can potentially access an entire network of business relationships. It's kind of like when one person in your office gets the flu. Remember when everyone was in the office at the same time? Suddenly everyone's calling in sick. Except with cyber attacks, nobody gets chicken soup, and the recovery is a lot more expensive than just Sprite and Dayquil. Second, intellectual property value. Your intellectual property holds significant value, both on the black market and in state-sponsored campaigns. You know, that specialized part that you manufacture, or that process you've perfected, or that design you've developed, that's gold to threat actors. Third, you've got limited in-house cybersecurity resources. Most SMBs don't have a dedicated security team. They have one person who's wearing multiple hats, and one of the hats happens to say security. Your focus is rightly on production and delivery. We get that. That's your business. That's what's going to keep the doors open. But guess what? Unfortunately, that focus also sometimes leaves doors open to vulnerability. Look, it's not about blame, mostly. We're going to blame you, but we also want to make you aware. CMMC is designed to help you close those doors without requiring you break the bank, or that you have a full IT department, or that you have a PhD in computer science, which I do not, by the way. I'm not that kind of doctor. So let's go ahead and break down the top threats that are facing small and medium businesses today. You've got phishing and social engineering. A simple email or fake invoice can be all it takes to trigger a serious breach. And these attacks are really sophisticated these days. They're not the obvious Nigerian prince emails with all the misspellings anymore. They look legitimate. They use real company names, and they target specific employees. Then you've got ransomware that disrupts production. When ransomware hits, it doesn't just lock up your data. It can bring your entire operational system to a halt. This translates to missed deadlines, lost revenue, and potentially losing your contract entirely. You've got ransomware. It's basically a digital hostage situation, except instead of Liam Neeson coming to your rescue and getting your files back using, excuse me, a very specific set of skills, you're stuck negotiating with someone who just wants Bitcoin. And trust me, Liam Neeson isn't returning your calls, or mine, especially not after that terrible impersonation. You've got supply chain vulnerabilities. A single weak link in a third-party connection can expose your entire operation to risk. The interconnected nature of the DIB makes supply chain attacks especially dangerous. And you've got intellectual property theft. You know those critical pieces of IP that I was talking about before, the ones that set you apart from your competitors? They get stolen. That can cause long-term damage to both your reputation and your market position. Then you've got operational disruption. Okay, beyond the immediate financial impact, cyber incidents create lingering problems. You could have equipment malfunctions, compliance violations, and your customers aren't going to trust you anymore, and you don't want that. All right, so let's go ahead and shift gears and talk about the Cybersecurity Maturity Model Certification, or what we know as CMMC. I know what you're thinking. Great, another government acronym. You're right, but let me just say this one actually matters. Think of it as the seatbelt of defense contracting. You might not love wearing it, but you'll be glad you have it when things get bumpy. Look, CMMC is the DoD's framework for ensuring that contractors handling sensitive information have appropriate cybersecurity controls in place. Think of it as the minimum standard for doing business with the Department of Defense. If you're currently working on defense contracts, or you hope to, Understand that CMMC is not optional. It's essential for your business survival in this marketplace. So you really want to get on board with it. So a little background about CMMC. It's got 3 levels, and understanding which level applies to you depends on what type of data you handle. Level 1 is foundational. This is what we're focusing on today. This just covers the basic data safeguarding for businesses that only handle FCI or federal contract information. And it's got 15 requirements. It aligns with the FAR clause, and it requires an annual self-assessment and then annual affirmation. We'll get into those in just a bit. Level 2 is advanced. This is for businesses that handle CUI or controlled unclassified information. This level has 110 requirements that aligns with NIST SP 800-171 Revision 2. Depending on your contracts, you may need either a self-assessment or a third-party assessment by a C3PAO. No, that is not a droid from Star Wars. Level 3 is the expert level. This is the boss level for those of you who are gamers. It is for high-capacity safeguarding of CUI related to national security programs or high-value assets. 134 requirements, filled with joy, and requires a special type of assessment. So think of it kind of like driver's licenses, right? Level 1 is your standard license. You can drive the car. Level 2 is like a CDL. You can handle bigger and more complex vehicles. And level 3 is like being certified to drive those trucks carrying the hazardous materials that cannot go through the tunnels in the state of Maryland. The stakes go up at each level. The key takeaway is you need to know your data. If you know your data, you know your level. Today, again, we're focused on level 1 because it's where most small businesses start and where most are going to remain. So no big deal on that. So understanding the difference between FCI and CUI is crucial. It, again, determines which CMMC level applies to you. You've got FCI, Federal Contract Information. This is sensitive but not classified information provided by or generated for the government under a contract. It's covered by a FAR clause, and it includes examples like contract information, organizational charts, process documentation, contract performance reports, and RFP or RFI responses. And for those of you that are going to sit there and say, well, what does it matter if those things get out on the internet? It matters if those things get out on the internet. Trust me. You don't want those things out on the internet, especially your RFP and RFI responses, because you're probably giving some really sensitive data there about your company that others are going to want to take advantage of. Then you've got CUI, Controlled Unclassified Information. This is a little bit broader category, or a lot broader category, actually. It's covered by a DFARS clause with a whole bunch of numbers behind it. And while it's not classified, it requires safeguarding and dissemination controls that are pursuant to federal laws, regulations, and policies. Examples include proprietary business information, unclassified controlled technical information. You've got the old sensitive but unclassified data. You've got the old for official use only material. Those acronyms aren't used very much anymore, but some people still do. Even law enforcement sensitive information. Here's an easy way to remember. FCI is like the recipe for your grandma's famous cookies. It's important for you to protect it, but it's not exactly classified. She's probably going to get miffed if you give it out to other people because then they're going to make her cookies and they might make them better. But, you know, again, it's not as bad as it could be. CUI is like that secret formula for Coca-Cola that nobody has still been able to figure out after all these years. Still not classified, but definitely needs extra security because Coke does not want fake Coke out on the market. If you're not sure what type of data you handle, all you need to do is look at your contract. Any contract you're bidding on, any contract you're on will tell you what level you need to be at. The clauses, they tell you what's required. You can talk to the contracting officer, get all of that information. So the simple formula for determining your compliance requirements. Again, if your contract requires you to handle FCI, you need to have the minimum of CMMC Level 1 compliance. It's not saying you have to stop there. Nobody says you have to stop. You can go to Level 3 if you want, but if you only need Level 1 and you know you're only going to need Level 1, you might as well stay with Level 1. Again, foundational level, 15 requirements. If your contract requires you to handle that CUI, then that's when you've got to go to Level 2 at a minimum. advanced level, 110 requirements, and it's all about, again, understanding the data, enabling you to identify the level of compliance you require. And this is why scoping, which is what we're going to get into shortly, I know you're waiting patiently, and I appreciate that. It's so important. You need to know what data you have, where it lives, how it moves throughout your organization. Look, it's like knowing whether you're in a 25-mile-per-hour school zone or on the interstate. The speed limit, the compliance requirements are different depending on when and where you are. Ignorance isn't an excuse for either speeding tickets or compliance failures. I will tell you, you will fail at trying to talk your way out of both. So here is the big news. CMMC is no longer coming. It's here. Like now. November, which, was last month, marked the official start of CMMC implementation across DoD contracts. The DFARS rule became live in the Federal Register on September 10th, and Phase 1 began on November 10th. Again, more than a month ago. This is not a drill. This is all real. It's all happening right now. You know how everyone procrastinates on their taxes until April 14th? Consider this your October reminder, except the deadline already passed, and now we're in the game. So time to get off the bench. Why does it matter? Look, adhering to cybersecurity standards is non-negotiable in today's digital landscape. Adhering to CMMC Phase 1 requirements will not only help protect sensitive information, but also enhance your competitiveness in the federal procurement process. So what should you do? First, assess your current cybersecurity posture. Second, you develop a compliance strategy. And then third, you stay informed. And being here today is a great start on that third point. Being proactive about these requirements can set your business apart and pave the way for future government contracting opportunities, whether it's at the federal level with the Defense Department or other federal agencies, or even at the state and local level, because they like cybersecurity too. So you have to understand the CMMC rollout is phased over 3 years after the rule's effective date. So everybody who started panicking, take a deep breath for a little bit. Here's what we're looking like. Phase 1, which is year 1, is where we are right now, like now. Limited contracts selected by the CMMC program office. This is the pilot phase, but make no mistake, those selected contracts are real contracts with real requirements, and you will hear about them. Phase 2, which is years 2 and 3, this is broader integration across most DoD programs. This is when the majority of contracts will start requiring CMMC certification. Phase 3, which is year 4 and beyond, all applicable contracts will require compliance. There will be no exceptions. Think of it like a swimming pool. Right now, we're at Phase 1. You can still ease in from the shallow end. By Phase 3, everyone's getting pushed into the deep end, whether they're ready or not. So you'd better learn to swim now. And floaties at that point are not going to help you. The bottom line is, by 2028, every contractor processing FCI or CUI must maintain an active CMMC compliance or self-assessment in SPURS. That's not a maybe, that's a must. And for those of you thinking, I have time, remember, preparation takes time. The businesses that start now will be ready. The businesses that wait may find themselves locked out of future opportunities. All right, here's where we get into the meat and potatoes of today's presentation, or the elephant bites if you're still eating elephant. CMMC Level 1 assessment scoping. Look, scoping is like planning a road trip, right? You need to know where you're going, what vehicle you're taking, and what you need to pack. You wouldn't take an RV through a drive-through, or you'd mess something up. You wouldn't take a motorcycle to move furniture. Same principle applies to cybersecurity. Know your scope, and you'll know what you need. Over the next several slides, we're going to break down exactly how to define your assessment scope, understand which assets are in scope versus out of scope, and identify specialized assets that require different treatment. So pay close attention here. Proper scoping is the foundation of a successful assessment. If you get this wrong, and everything else becomes more difficult. Now, before performing your Level 1 self-assessment, Your organization needs to clearly define the CMMC assessment scope. At level 1, it means identifying all assets that process, store, or transmit FCI. So let's go ahead and unpack those three actions. Process. These are systems using FCI in some way. They're editing it, they're generating it, or they're printing it. If someone is opening a contract document on their computer, that computer is processing FCI. Then you've got store. These are systems that keep FCI at rest. They're like files on a server, on a computer hard drive, or even paper records in a filing cabinet for those of you who still do that sort of thing. Look, if FCI sits there, it counts as storage. Then you've got transmit. These are systems that move FCI between devices or people, whether it's through email, file uploads, file transfers. If FCI travels through it, it's transmitting. Think of FCI kind of like the water in your house. If a pipe carries it, that pipe matters. If a tank holds it, that tank matters. If a faucet dispenses it, the faucet matters. You can't just say, well, it's a small pipe and it's under the sink and I didn't really know that it had water in it until I cut it open and it flowed everywhere. Look, if FCI flows through it, it's in scope. The golden rule is if an asset touches FCI in any of these ways, it's in scope. Period. No exceptions. Remember, you need to keep that in mind. So in-scope assets are your core systems. Again, anything that processes, stores, or transmits FCI. You've got some examples. Workstations, where contracts or technical drawings are reviewed. The file servers or SharePoint sites, where contract data is saved. Your email system, which is used to send or receive government-related files. Then you've got the printers or scanners that produce physical copies of FCI. Yeah, you know that printer in the corner of your office that everyone forgets about, except when they want to photocopy, like their face and make a goofy picture or something like that? Look, guess what? If it still prints FCI documents, it's in scope, whether people use it or not. Printers are like that quiet coworker who knows everyone's business. They see everything, and you need to make sure they're trustworthy and cleaned off, especially if you've got people putting parts of their anatomy on there. Here's the key point. Every one of these assets must meet all 15 CMMC Level 1 requirements. You can't skip a system just because it's low use or because it seems unimportant. If it handles FCI, it's in. This is where many businesses struggle. They think, well, that computer only gets used like once a month, maybe twice a month, or once every 2 months for contract work. Guess what? Doesn't matter. If it touches FCI even once, it needs to meet all 15 requirements. Then you've got assets that never process, store, or transmit FCI. These are out of scope. Examples might include your marketing computers that only handle the public data, your HR systems with no contract-related content, your guest Wi-Fi networks because they're not linked to your business systems. Sounds simple, right? But here's the caution, and this is important. If an out-of-scope system connects directly or indirectly to an in-scope system, it may unintentionally expand your boundary. It's kind of like inviting one friend to watch the big game and suddenly 3 buddies show up and now you have to order more pizza. So always verify your network segmentation and access controls. Just because a computer doesn't handle FCI doesn't mean that it can't be used as a bridge to systems that do. This is why documentation matters. You need to clearly define which systems are in scope, which are out of scope, and how they're separated. If you can't prove separation, an assessor may expand your scope to include those connected systems. Now, here's a category that often confuses people. This is specialized assets. These are assets that, may handle FCI but cannot be fully secured. So you've got a few examples, like the Internet of Things or industrial IoT devices like smart sensors or connected equipment. Operational technology such as programmable controllers or SCADA systems. You've got the government furnished equipment, GFE, restricted information systems built per government requirements. Test equipment that's used for product verification or fielded systems. These are like that old family car you keep in the garage. Yeah, it still runs, it still serves a purpose, but you're not going to enter it in a car show and you're not going to go racing it down the street. You just need to know that it's there and manage it accordingly and keep it running so that you can have yourself a backup. Here's the key point. Specialized assets are not part of the level 1 assessment scope. They are excluded from being assessed against CMMC requirements. Yay! But, and this is a big but, and no, I'm not talking about the song, they should still be inventoried for awareness. You need to know that they exist and you need to document how they interact with your environment. Just because they're excluded from the assessment doesn't mean they're invisible, because you can see them. CMMC scoping goes beyond devices, though. It's all about how people, technology, and environments interact. The people, this includes your employees, your contractors, your managed service providers, even your vendors. You need to identify who can access FCI and ensure that their accounts, their permissions, and their training reflect that responsibility. Then you've got your technologies. Your tech stack is your servers, your computers, your mobile devices, your routers, your switchers, VoIP systems, virtual machines, look, all that kind of stuff, right? Each must be inventoried to ensure it's properly configured and protected. Then you've got your facilities. This includes every location where FCI is processed. Offices, warehouses, data centers, or even home offices if remote employees handle government data. Remember that physical protection is part of level 1. You need to control access to areas where FCI systems are located. Speaking of remote offices, if Bob from accounting is working from home and processing FCI or accessing it, that means, guess what? His home office is now part of your scope. Yes, even if he's working next to that collection of Star Wars action figures. Yeah, actually, especially then, because those things are valuable. You've got your external service providers, your ESPs. If your managed service provider or your cloud host processes or stores FCI on your behalf, they are now part of your scoped environment. You need to ensure that those providers remain the same level of security that's expected of you. And scoping is not a one-time activity. It evolves. Your business is going to change. Your technology is going to change, and your scope needs to change with it. You'll need to reassess if there are significant architectural or boundary changes, such as adding or merging networks, acquiring another company, expanding your IT systems to new locations. It's like when you finish your basement. Don't just assume that the old smoke detectors and burglar alarm are going to cover the new space if you haven't rewired them. You need to make sure the new area is protected too. So it's the same with your IT environment. And just to note, normal operational updates like adding users or replacing a computer, it doesn't require a new assessment. Those changes should just be captured through your annual affirmation of continuing compliance. This is where documentation becomes your best friend. You develop what's known as an SSP or System Security Plan. This keeps your scope documented, defines your boundaries, and records your control implementation. This makes future affirmations faster, cleaner, and easier to defend. And if someone asks what's in your scope, you should be able to point to a document like your SSP and say, here it is. If you have to guess, guess what? You are not ready. You are not worthy. You shall not pass. All right, you've defined your scope. You know what's in, you know what's out, and you know what's specialized. Now it is actually time to perform the assessment. It's kind of like when you've prepped all the ingredients for your holiday dinner. The turkey's thawed, the potatoes are peeled. Now it's time to actually cook. So let's go ahead and fire up the oven, shall we? Not literally. You don't really need an oven for this part. Just sit in front of your computer, please. Thank you. Over the next several slides, we're going to walk through the assessment process. We're going to perform your self-assessment and then submit your score into SPURS. No, we're not actually going to do that. We're just going to talk about it. I'll take you through it step by step. So even if this is your first time, you'll know exactly what to do. Now, any organization required by contract to handle FCI data must, again, attain a minimum of CMMC Level 1 compliance. That compliance requires a self-assessment followed by an annual affirmation. Here's the good news. These are free. There are free cybersecurity self-assessment tools available, including those offered by our strategic partner, Project Spectrum. who works with the DoD Office of Small Business Programs. Project Spectrum's website is projectspectrum.io. If you go there and go under their useful tools section, it's like having a personal trainer, but for cybersecurity. And unlike a gym membership in January, it's actually free and you won't feel guilty for not using them, although you really should. Actually, you should definitely, not really should, you should definitely use them. These tools will walk you through each of the 15 level 1 requirements, help you determine if you're meeting them. They're designed to be user-friendly, even if you're not a cybersecurity expert. Now, we've also got experts here at Move America who can point you toward additional resources and consulting support if you need hands-on assistance with your assessment. Just reach out to us. Now, after completing your self-assessment, you'll receive a Supplier Risk Management System, or SPRS score. A SPRS submission does not have to do with going down to San Antonio and watch basketball or going over to Tottenham to watch Premier League soccer or football or European football or whatever. I'm not getting into that. It's the formal upload of your company's cybersecurity self-assessment score along with supporting metadata into the DoD SPRS module within, guess what, another government acronym, the PIEE, the Procurement Integrated Enterprise Environment. Oh, wait a minute, that's SPRS in PIEE. That's kind of fun to say, but that's another government acronym inside a government acronym. It's like 16 acronyms. It's like those Russian nesting dolls, but with databases. Again, fun to say, but important to understand. The key thing for you to keep in mind, your SPRS score is visible to DoD contracting officers. When you bid on a contract, they can look up your score. If you don't have one, you can't compete. It's that simple. Organizations can follow step-by-step instructions to accurately prepare, validate, and submit their data in SPRS. Ensuring that compliance and then making sure that you're going to have that reliable performance reporting that you're going to want to need, you're going to want to demonstrate if you are doing business with the Department of Defense. So let's walk through the SPRS submission process step by step. SPRS tracks assessment results at the cage code level. If this is the first time your company is submitting CMMC results for a particular information system tied to your cage code, a new record is mandatory. If the same cage code has already been assessed and the identical environment is being used, you can update the existing record instead of creating a new one. It's kind of like renewing your driver's license versus getting a whole new one. If you just need, to renew it, the photo's good, your address is the same, all you do is keep the same picture, even it's not terrible, you just keep it, you renew it, you're done, right? And you may have gained weight, you may have lost weight. Again, they're going to have that information, but you don't need to update that. They're just going to get you the new driver's license and it's going to have all the old stuff on it. If you've moved to a completely different state, or in this case, a new IT environment, you need to start fresh. Okay, so this is really where you need to go. Then you've got, I'm sorry, did I skip a few slides? I think I skipped a few slides. Yep, I did. I skipped a few slides. I'm really sorry. Did not realize I was doing that. Did not realize I was skipping slides. All right. So anyway, we're going to go here. We talked about Project Spectrum. Then we talked about, step one. Yep. Step one. Okay, so I'm sorry. Here we go. So we talked about, yep. So here we go, step one. So step one, you need to confirm your prerequisites. Again, we're walking through the SPRS submission process step by step. Sorry, I kind of got ahead of myself a little bit. Step one, you need to confirm your prerequisites. Again, it's all about the cage code. This is what is known as a commercial and government entity code, okay? You can't open a SPRS record without having three things in place. First is your cage code. Second is your PIEE user account. And third is your completed CMMC self-assessment or third-party assessment package. Think of it like getting through TSA. You need your ID, your boarding pass, and your luggage properly packed. You show up without any of those, you're not getting on that plane, or you're getting on the plane, but it's going to be a little ugly later on. Step two, you are going to go ahead and gather evidence and create final documentation packages, right? SPURS only accepts results from a finished assessment. So don't initiate a record until your self-assessment is complete and all your supporting artifacts are in final form. You should have a formally approved system security plan, that SSP I talked about before. That's going to describe each information system in scope. Plus, you need to have some plans of action and milestones, which are known as POAMs, not poems, because they're not necessarily rhythmic. But if those residual deficiencies remain, you're going to need a POAM. Step three is to determine whether, again, a new SPURS entry is required. This is where I was getting into before. Sorry, I didn't mean to jump ahead and skip an entire slide. SPURS tracks assessment results at that cage code level. So again, if you are submitting CMMC results for a particular information tied to your cage code, a new record is mandatory, but if the same cage code has already been assessed and the identical environment is being used, you can just update the existing record instead of creating a new one. Step four is where you log into PIEE and launch SPURS. With your documentation in hand, your authorized user, and you need to have an authorized user, will log into PIEE, select SPURS from the application menu, and confirm multi-factor authentication. From the SPURS landing page, you select assessment entry to either create a new record or edit an existing one. For those of you who are already starting to freak out, let me just explain. Our strategic partners over at Project Spectrum, they've got a whole document on this. They've got a whole training course on this. They've got a video that you can watch. It's going to walk you through it. I promise you it's going to be fine. And also we have experts here at Move America who can help you do the same thing. All right, so step five, you're going to enter the core assessment data. You're going to be prompted for key metadata like your organization's cage code, your assessment type, and your assessment date. Next, SPURS is going to ask for the assessment score or status. For CMMC Level 1, the entry is binary. It's one of two choices, either requirements met or requirements not met. This reflects the 15 basic safeguarding controls that are mapped to the FAR clause. Look, it's pass-fail, kind of like your driver's test. There's no kind of passed or passed with style points. Either you meet all 15 requirements or you don't. No participation trophies here, especially if you ran over your instructor's foot. Step six is affirm continuous compliance. SPURS enforces an affirmation section that serves as the legal attestation that your organization remains in continuous compliance with 32 CFR Part 170. You must check the affirmation box and type an electronic signature. It's a legal statement, so by signing, you're attesting that what you've submitted is true and accurate. Don't take this part lightly. Step seven, you're going to upload or reference your supporting artifacts. Now, although SPURS does not require uploading entire SSPs or evidence sets, the interface does provide an option to attach summary artifacts like executive assessment reports. If you elect not to upload, you must still identify where the evidence is stored and make it available to DoD upon request. They think of it like keeping your tax records. If you don't send the IRS everything, you better have it ready if they come knocking. It's the old trust but verify approach, right? Look, the government trusts your submission, but they reserve the right to verify it at any time. So keep those documents organized, preferably not in a shoebox under your desk. Step 8, you're going to review and finalize your submission. The user reviews all fields for accuracy, then clicks Submit. SPURS generates a confirmation page and a unique submission ID. A best practice for you is to PDF the confirmation page and archive it with your assessment package as formal proof of your submission. You look, at this point, the record is visible to DoD program offices and contracting officers. So you're going to want to make sure you get this done, and you're going to want to make sure that you have that information. Are you almost bored? Don't be. We're almost done. Step 9, annual maintenance and interim updates. For CMMC Level 1 and Level 2 self-assessments, you must re-perform and re-upload at least once every 12 months. An updated entry is required sooner if your organization's security posture changes. For example, if you create a new enclave, you merge systems, or you conduct a system-wide technology overhaul, yep, you're going to do it again. Think of it like your annual physical with the doctor. Even if you feel fine, you still need to go every year. And if something major changes, like you suddenly add a whole new IT system or have some strange discharge coming out of your ear, you should probably go sooner. Step 10 is record retention record retention and audit readiness. Boy, I had two pronunciations. I went 50, 50, 90, 50, 50, 50% of the time. I'm going to go to the 90% wrong one. Finally, you're going to store the confirmation PDF, your finalized SSP, any POAMs, any supporting artifacts in a secure repository for the duration of the contract, plus any additional retention period that's mandated by DoD. So they may say you have to keep it for X amount of time after a contract ends. Look, auditors or contracting officers may request to see not only the evidence, but also proof of the timely SPUR submission. Maintaining this chain of custody ensures a clean audit trail and speeds reaccreditation activities in future years. So again, you're going to want to do this. All right, so let's go ahead and recap some of the key takeaways from today's presentation because we're coming up close to the top of the hour. CMMC Level 1 scoping defines your assessment boundary. Every asset that processes, stores, or transmits FCI is in scope, and there are no exceptions. Your out-of-scope systems don't touch FCI, but they need to remain isolated. If they connect to in-scope systems, they may expand your boundary. Then you've got specialized assets. Again, those are excluded from the self-assessment, but must still be identified and documented, so you've got to know where they are. Scoping covers more than technology. It includes people, it includes facilities, and includes service providers. Everyone and everything that touches FCI is part of your scope. Maintaining your scope through annual affirmations and strong documentation practices, that's vital. A system security plan is your best friend. In summary, know your data, know your boundaries, document everything, and when in doubt, it's probably in scope. It's better to include something unnecessary than to have something that's critical left out. So we've got some nice key resources for you, right? Now, here are some trusted government-endorsed platforms that provide guidance, training, and documentation tools. First, you've got SPURS itself. Again, Supplier Performance Risk System. This is where you submit your assessment scores. Then you've got the DoD CUI Registry. This is to understand CUI categories and markings, and you can go here. You'll get a copy of this presentation. I promise you that. And when you do, take a look at these links, bookmark them. They're going to be important. You've got the Cyber Accreditation Body Marketplace. This is where you can find C3 PAOs, RPOs, and CMMC guidance. I know all of that, again, sounds like a bunch of stuff from Star Wars. You can find NIST 800-171 resources. It includes SSP templates and detailed control guidance. Again, you're going to want to bookmark these sites. They are like the emergency contacts you keep on your fridge. Hopefully you won't need them in a panic, but when you do, you're certainly glad that they're there. So many businesses don't realize there may be financial assistance available to help offset the cost of CMMC readiness, because guess what? While it doesn't cost you anything to apply for CMMC certification, it's going to cost you to get there. So you've got to just let me share a few options. First, you've got your manufacturing extension partnership centers, your local MEPs. Often these folks offer subsidized gap assessments. They offer workshops. They even offer CMMC consulting. Every state has at least one, and you can find yours by going to that link, nist.gov/MEP/centers. Look, MEP centers are kind of like the neighborhood mechanic who actually tells you what's wrong with your vehicle instead of upselling you on stuff you don't need, except it's for cybersecurity. You've got the state cybersecurity programs. States like Virginia, Texas, California, they offer matching grants, tax credits, or funding for security upgrades. Check with your state's economic development office. Then you've got prime funded assistance, okay? In some cases, large DoD contractors may cover a portion of your compliance costs as part of a flow down support, especially for sole source or niche suppliers. Look, it never hurts to ask your prime contractor if they're willing to do that. The point you have to remember is don't assume you have to do this alone. Don't assume you have to fund it entirely out of your own pocket, because there are resources available if you look to them. Now, Move America. We are here to offer a range of resources to help you on your compliance journey and through a bunch of other things. Look, we've got networks and partnerships that we can connect you with. SSP plans and guidance, POAMs, frameworks, advisory services, consulting referrals, self-assessment toolkits, educational resources, and webinars like this one. Think of Move America as your compliance GPS. We don't drive the vehicle for you, but we'll definitely point you in the right direction and make sure you don't get lost along the way. And we do sincerely promise not to say recalculating route multiple times while you're on your journey. Remember, we're here to help businesses like yours succeed in the defense marketplace. Now, if you're looking to stay connected with Move America and get the help you need, you can follow us on LinkedIn and YouTube. We've got updates, we've got industry news, we've got announcements about future webinars like this one, other types of events. You could also sign up for our newsletter, and you're going to get regular updates on the defense industrial base developments, including CMMC changes, compliance resources. We're kind of like that helpful neighbor who actually knows stuff about helping industry, academia, and government, except we're available by email, and we won't ask to borrow your lawnmower. Now, with that, we have reached the end of today's presentation. I do want to thank you so much for joining us. Remember, if you had questions throughout the presentation, all you need to do is send them to communications@moveamerica.org. We are more than happy to get answers for you. I want to thank you so much for joining us today. I want to thank my entire team. I want to thank Meg Pace, our strategic communications specialist. I want to thank my colleague over on the Project Spectrum side, Mark Chisholm. I want to thank all of the folks at Move America, including our executive director, Earl Wyatt. They all keep us just turning and churning, and we are happy to be here for you. Now, before we end today, I just want to leave you with something about this. CMMC compliance isn't just about checking boxes or avoiding penalties. It's all about protecting your business, protecting your employees, protecting your customers, and ultimately protecting our national security. We are not being glib about that. We are being serious. Every company in the defense supply chain matters, from the largest prime contractors to the smallest specialty manufacturers. When you protect your systems, you're protecting the entire ecosystem that supports our warfighters. So that is going to wrap things up for us. Go forth, scope your assessments, document your boundaries, and remember, in cybersecurity, like in life, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Or in government contracting terms, a little compliance now is worth a lot of contract opportunities later. So thanks again for joining us. Take care out there. And remember, the best time to start your CMMC journey was a year ago. The second best time is right after this webinar, preferably before you get distracted by those funny cat videos. Thanks again for joining. We'll see you next time. For all of us at Move America, have yourself a wonderful rest of the day.
If you still have questions, just shoot us an email. We'd love to hear from you. And don't forget to connect with us on LinkedIn for monthly newsletters and webinar updates. And check out our website for even more resources and ways to get involved. Thanks for watching.